Stay tuned. Coming up on this episode, I interview Firefighter Chris Tobin from the St. Louis Fire Department as we talk about the mindset of aggressiveness. But first, let's pay the bills. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to episode 284 of the Situation Awareness Matters show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this program is to help improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SAMatters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from my office in St. Paul, Minnesota, having just returned from conducting a situational awareness program for the Safety Plus Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is the annual conference for members of the Voluntary Protection Programs Participants Association. Hey, I have a big announcement. Our mission is expanding. Since launching the Situational Awareness Matters mission back in 2007, we've been focused entirely on helping first responders improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. But along the way, we found ourselves being discovered by business and industry. And they've been hiring our company to help their workers, managers, and executives improve situational awareness and high-consequence decision-making. Over the past 5 years, more than 24 businesses and industrial facilities have found us through Google searches. It took a while, but based on the success we've had with helping these organizations and on the feedback that they have provided to us, we now see an opportunity to be more strategic with programs and consulting for them. If you are in emergency services, know this: helping first responders has been and will remain our core mission. But we are expanding to help workers in business and industry as well now. This includes a new look to the SAMatters.com website. When you visit the site now, you will immediately see the opportunity to pick a lane based on whether you're a first responder or whether you're in business and industry. This will ensure the content you are seeking will be appropriate to your needs. And perhaps equally as exciting, I've written a new book, How Smart Workers Use Situational Awareness to Improve Safety. This book will help anyone who works in a high-stress, high-consequence environment improve their understanding of situational awareness and improve their high-risk decision-making. The book is scheduled to be released on August 26th, but you can advance order a copy now by visiting our store on the SAMatters.com website. And for our listeners and viewers, I'm going to offer you a 30% discount. Just enter the discount code SMART, S-M-A-R-T, when you check out. And I'll also put a link to that page in the show notes. Perhaps you've heard me talk in previous episodes about our 5th anniversary celebration and our sweepstakes. Well, all of that was put on hold while the website and the book were all being finalized. The problem is it took 5 months longer than expected for the website and the book to get finished. So I'll be working on the sweepstakes here soon, but I'm just excited to share with you all this good news about the new website and the new book and the upcoming sweepstakes. All right, today's feature segment is brought to you by SimsUShare. SimsUShare is a simple and affordable way for you to develop and practice situational awareness skills. You can quickly build sims from your photos to simulate almost any kind of incident, including active threat scenarios. And the new Sims You Share Command Training Center now lets you conduct multi-company drills over the internet, so you can even run drills while your companies stay in station. Check them out at simsyoushare.com. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment, my interview with Firefighter Chris Tobin from the St. Louis Fire Department, as we talk about the mindset of aggressiveness. Hey everyone, welcome to Situation Awareness Matters. Today my guest is Chris Tobin. He's a firefighter on Rescue 2 in St. Louis, and what the inspiration was for having Chris on the show is my son attended his program at the FDIC and recommended that I have Chris come onto the show and talk about the mindset of aggressiveness, which was the topic of the presentation at FDIC. So Chris, thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Let's just start out with what is this? What is the concept of a mindset of aggressiveness, and what does that mean? Maybe we'll start maybe for the frontline firefighter, then maybe for the company officer, and then maybe even at the command level. So maybe take it from three perspectives.
Yeah, so starting down from the lowest, the fireman just on the line, basically it's just taking initiative. It's being all out effort to succeed, no different than what you would tell your kids playing a sport in high school. So on an officer level, it's basically having your guys get off the truck with tools in their hands, ready to work. You're not doing the yard huddle, giving out orders. Guys just know it needs to be done. And from a chief's perspective, it's always having crews in the right spot at the right time. It's always the guys are already getting ladders before you have to tell them to get ladders. There's already a second line being stretched to the second floor before you have to say, hey, I need a second line. So it's that kind of mindset on the fire ground. And you see this duplicated over and over again if you know what you're looking for on departments that do this very well, to where there's just movement and progress. There's no stalling. There's no talking. It's just straight progression. And those fire departments are highly successful and save a lot of people.
Okay. And take us down the pathway of some of the things that you had taught during the class, because I think the class was maybe like an hour and a half or 90 minutes or something like that. So what are some of the things the people that might not have been in the class could have benefited from what you were sharing?
So in the class, like I said, we split it up into two halves. The first part is just the attitude, the mindset behind aggressiveness. The takeaways from that are basically you got to know steps 2 and 3 if you're going to take initiative. You got to understand what you have to do before you get there, and that's really what it's all about. Is you can aggressively do anything. You can aggressively be in the defensive posture. Aggressive isn't going in and being stupid. People mislabel that term a lot, and that's what I was really out to dispel. It got a bad reputation for a long time, and we put all that to rest, and just kind of righted the train on what aggressiveness actually is. And I have the data to prove that it's not a dangerous way. It's actually the safest way of doing things, because you're so competent in your abilities that you're able to be aggressive, and that's how we should want things to be done on a fire ground. You should want your fire chief, should want his members to be aggressive. That should be in your SOGs. So we talked about that in the mindset. Then we actually talked about what an aggressive interior fire tactic is. That's made up of 10 more dangerous tactics that make that up, but it has been formally defined, and those tactics are more dangerous, but they require a higher level of competency, which as long as you train the risk out of the equation, you will be okay. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you today. My department is not special. We do those things on most of our fires, but so do thousands of other fire departments, and everyone goes home at the end of the day. And those fire departments are the ones that are, like I said, saving the most people and saving the most property in that amount of time. So it's okay to be aggressive. It's not a bad thing anymore, and I'm glad that it's actually coming back. For a while there was on life support, and I'm glad that's kind of subsided. So.
So what's the criteria for being smart aggressive?
Well, common sense. I don't like to sugarcoat the word aggressive. I don't like when people say smart aggressive or, just safely aggressive. Aggressive in itself, there's a bunch of moving parts in that mindset. One thing I talk about in the class is partners on the fire ground. My partner is, almost twice my age. He'd be my father. That's by design. That keeps me safe. He has experience. I don't have as much experience, but I keep him from getting complacent. He keeps me alive. It's a synergistic effect. It's that kind of stuff built into the system that keeps us okay and lets us be aggressive. So I don't have to worry about being smart or safe. It's inherently built into the system that you have put in place. So you can just be aggressive and the job gets done.
Okay, so for the benefit of others who may not have the special gifts that you have, what would some of the things that they would want to do or develop to get to where they're able to be aggressive without concern? I don't know if I'm using the right terms here.
And this is where I tell people, look, if you're on a department that's going to 1 or 2 interior fire jobs a year, maybe all these tactics aren't for you. Maybe you shouldn't be searching above the fire floor without a line. Maybe you shouldn't be searching without a line. You got to understand, not all fire departments are equal. Now this can be done anywhere, but at the same time, you have to be able to say, hey, maybe I'm just not trained at the level that these tasks require to be successful without being reckless. So I can't say, that's something that the chief and whoever themselves takes discipline in knowing that. Fortunately, I went out of my way even when I was on a slower department. I did ride-alongs with the city of St. Louis before I ever worked for them and got a bunch of experience that way. Now, obviously, I wasn't going in with the first engine company. I wasn't on air, but I still got to see in real time how it all worked. And I got to bring that back to my fire department I was on at the time, which was basically going to no fires. I was on a very small rural suburban fire department that we did little to no interior fire attack. And if you're not getting the sets and the reps in, don't try to square off against something that you can't be successful at. You have to have your own self-discipline when it comes to that kind of stuff. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, should I really be doing this? Am I really trained enough to be doing this? Sometimes maybe not.
So what kind of what are some examples of the kind of training or the kind of experience that would allow someone to default more toward the aggressive versus, say, the conservative? You say you have the department that goes to 1 or 2 calls or 1 or 2 working fires a year. Well, what about the department that goes to, say, 20 working fires a year? Is there some point where there's the tipping point for experience that responders can acquire the kind of knowledge that would allow them to be, say, more aggressive?
Sure. Yeah. And when it comes to the training, look at how we train these days. Like, how often is it that we get to actually light fire in an actual building, in an acquired structure? How often do we actually just get to train in an acquired structure without any fire at all? I can't train you and be safe inside of an IDL's environment if I can't have you sound the floor. I can't do that in a training building, right? It's a concrete floor. So how am I supposed to train you to avoid holes in a vacant building if you don't know how to sound the floor in a concrete training tower, right? So not only are we not getting the experience that we used to get, we're also training ourselves bad habits, and we're just not getting the quality of training. So the candle's burning on both ends here, is what I'm trying to say. And that leaves a very small portion of the country's fire service who are actually getting the sets and the reps in. And those are the departments that are able to do this stuff on a daily basis and not get injured. The problem is, like I said, when you have a fire department that just doesn't have the sets and the reps, doesn't have the training capabilities to get the experience, and then they go and try to duplicate that, and then they get themselves in trouble. I don't know how to fix that other than getting those departments out and doing ride-alongs in the busier places, and that's up to them to find that. There's a bunch of departments out there that do ride-alongs. Also, the training needs to up its game. You have places like FDTN that does really great training. There's a few other ones out there. FDIC is always talked about, but even FDIC, we've been asking for an acquired structure for 2 years now, and they still put us in a metal connex. That's not a house, all right? That's a metal box. I can't teach you how to do things in there. So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I don't have an answer for that. That's just something that the fire service needs to have a really a coming to Jesus meeting on pretty quick.
How long have you been on the St. Louis Fire Department?
It'll be 10 years here in August.
Okay. And in that 10 years, have you personally had any significant near-miss experiences that you, or one or a couple that you'd be willing to share?
Oh, yeah. I've had my moments of humility more than a few times. I've done my time on light duty for severe burns twice, numerous building collapses. Everyone falls through floors. I don't know what, I mean, a near miss is very subjective. What I would consider just a normal day in a vacant, nasty building, someone might consider a near miss. So I've never been critically injured or severely injured necessarily, but I've done my time on light duty. I mean, to answer your question, I've learned a lot in 10 years. I've definitely slowed my roll, learned how to pace myself. Also, I'm on a different assignment now that requires me to save myself for maybe multiple fires in a day, opposed to just maybe going to one a day. But yeah, I've done my fair share of learning. It's been an interesting ride. So it's just interesting progression.
So from those events of being burned or falling through the floors, what are some takeaway lessons that you could share with someone that says, I learned to be smarter about this, or I learned not to do this, or I learned from these events, these lessons? So
the first one was just the perfect definition of me being me, just being too gung-ho. I out advanced my water. I called for water too late. It was all my own doing. We advanced uncharged hose lines for a lot of good reasons, and that's a good tactic when safely done. The problem was I did it in a reckless manner, and I called for water too late, too near to a fire, and I paid the price for it. And that was my first lesson. Haven't duplicated that one since. The second one, I tell you what, the second one was kind of an anomaly, and I talked to a lot of friends about it. That was the one I got first and second degree burns over 9% of my body, from head to toe almost in different parts. And I was in a room with no fire when I got burned like that. And I'm not really sure what happened. We were on a third attempt. We had two previous engine companies go up with the line. They got burned also. And the squads are kind of there to put in place to help advance the line to continue the advance on the fire. And I got it like those guys did. We eventually did put the fire out. We had vertical ventilation happen as I was up there. And if it wasn't for that vertical ventilation, I would have never made it to the fire. I mean, it was immediate. I felt the benefits of that hole put in place immediately. And it was a big difference. So that was my big aha moment with vertical ventilation. Until you're stuck to the floor hoping for it, you're always kind of like, maybe it's not so good of a thing. It saved the day that day. But I don't know. The lesson for that was, I don't know. I was flowing water the whole time. I'm not really sure exactly what happened. If anything, it really showed me the complexities of our job. It ain't always some UL data. It ain't always as simple as wet stuff on the red stuff. It just ain't that simple sometimes. There's still things out there that are unexplained. And that was a moment that I still cannot, I don't know if I was steamed. I don't know what exactly happened. But all I know, and I did the investigation myself afterwards. I went back to the building and did my own little investigation of the fire behavior and everything. And I was in a room with no fire, and I got burnt the hell up. So very, very strange. So
I'm intrigued by this. What was there a sudden change of conditions that I mean, like, you know, were you like good visibility, then no visibility? You know, was the heat from fire, the heat from steam? What was?
I don't know. I got a nasty burn on my leg from probably what we think was standing water. I got burns all around my neck, my ears, my head, my hands, my knees, and none of that was. It was some sort of heat. I don't know if it was steam, if it was liquid water. I don't know. But the fire looked like there was somebody burning tires on the second floor. The problem with that was the fire was in the basement and extended up to the first floor through some rear stairwells. I had opposing stairs. So we went up one set of stairs, shotgun style, 2 rooms, and then there was the opposing set of stairs. And that's where the fire was coming up. So I was basically looking at a jet engine. That's what I was crawling into. I guess you can say we were in the flow path. That's what that was. And I was flowing water the entire time. Like I said, I learned my lesson from the previous time. Plus, like I said, we already had 2 crews come out who had already gotten burned. So we were charging up the hill again, and I knew to open up early, and I did. And I mean, I was flowing 150 gallons a minute right at it. You know, I knew what direction the fire was. I listened. I could hear the hallway. I knew my water was going in the right spot. But it was hell. It was, I can't explain it. I don't know how that happened. So some sort of fluid dynamics that are over my head, but.
I don't know if you've spent any time with any number of line of duty death reports, but you had mentioned one before we started the show, and I was just curious as to what, if you have any takeaways or lessons or themes or recurring type things that you're seeing in line of duty deaths that would perhaps relate to the theme of what you teach.
Yeah, I've noticed, first of all, young inexperienced kids who don't have the reps and the sets in command or officer positions, like really young lieutenants. And that's concerning. Like I said, I have, this will be 16 or 17 years coming up total for me in the fire service. And I want nothing to do with being a lieutenant or an officer. I'm still learning way more than, I need to be telling people what to do. So to see some 19-year-old kid in a lieutenant spot, that's scary. I mean, that's, I don't know why anyone would ever do that, but I see that, as a recurring theme. And, the other one is just basically not understanding when you're outmatched and outgunned for the situation at hand. Departments are just, they're undertrained and overwhelmed at these fires, and they're doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing to the level of their training. So your tactics have to match your level of competency. And sometimes that doesn't exactly add up, and you get the result that you get. Now, that's really hard to separate, because sometimes we can do everything right and we still have a bad day. So you have to kind of sift through the minutia in a report to kind of start seeing those things. Mm-hmm. And like I spoke with you previously, the command location is something that I'm starting to really notice. If you hide your chief in a buggy down the block, they're not going to be able to use their intuition to the best of their ability. And that's something that you're going to start seeing biting you in the butt here. So,
I had assumed that where you work, the commander is not in a buggy down the street.
No, never. We actually have 2 chiefs on every fire. The chief is in the front of the building. The second chief acts as a safety officer there in the back of the building or on opposing corners. So they have eyes on all 4 sides of the building. We don't have row homes, but if we do, or a large building, we'll use more chiefs if we need to. We can call, more if you need it, just for that reason, for eyes on all sides of the building at all times. So those chiefs are allowed to use their intuition, all their senses, not just their sight, or even worse, if you're in a buggy and you can't even see anything, you're just relying on radio traffic, right? It's the least dependable way that we make our decisions, right? Just like radio traffic. I mean, radios are always always a problem. Communications are always a problem at every line of your report. So why would you base all your life decision making, off a radio? Like that's just mind boggling to me that chiefs would even want to do that. So our chiefs are sitting there watching, using their eyes, their sight, their smell, their hearing, everything. We'll have chiefs take a glove off and even feel if they need it. I mean, they'll use all their senses. Is what I'm trying to say, not just rely on somebody with less time on to give them a radio report. So that's how we do it. And now that's not for complex operations. That's just for your run-of-the-mill fires. If it's a large high-rise or warehouse or something, we have command posts for that kind of operation. And that's where those chiefs really need to be put away, and some, a different level of command needs to happen. But for your house fires, there's no reason why your chief shouldn't be out in the front of the building. You can't have command presence if you're not present. I just don't understand how that way of doing things went away. That's, if you look back from photos from 150 years ago, where is the chief at? The chief's not sitting on some horse down the block. Chief's right there in front of the building. So that's worked. It's worked for a long time. That's called dependable. That's the things we should be doing. So,
on a single family residential dwelling fire, what would be the standard response from your department?
So we have two responses for just fires in buildings or houses. The standard response would be a still alarm, which would give basically that gives 5 pieces of apparatus. It'd be like three pumping apparatus, a squad, and a hook and ladder, and then 1 chief. Now, if they show up and they think they need more resources, whether it's an occupied house or maybe exposures, they'll go ahead and hook it, and that'll be a first alarm. That brings 2 more pieces of apparatus, and then another chief to operate as the safety officer. Because we'll operate on that still alarm for most vacant buildings. We don't need to have a full first alarm for that kind of operation. But if it's occupied, or like I said, there's exposures, they'll go ahead and upgrade it to a first alarm, or what most people call a box alarm. And then we'll work with 7 pieces of apparatus and 30 firemen, 2 chiefs. And an ambulance shows up also, and they're dedicated EMS staff for victims and us. So we're blessed with the manpower. That's why we're allowed to do the things that we're allowed to do.
Yeah. So how long does it take to get 30 firefighters on the scene of a working residential fire?
Depending on where it's at in the city, St. Louis doesn't have like outlying areas necessarily. It's all it's nice and compacted. Under 8 minutes is the norm. You'll have 2 and 3 apparatus showing up at a time in any given spot usually.
And what would be your advice? I would think, although I can't cite a statistic, but I would think that there would be a small percentage of fire departments that could turn 30 firefighters to the scene of a fire in less than 8 minutes, and that maybe the bigger majority would maybe not be able to turn 30 at all, maybe half that many,
right?
And definitely not all there in less than 8 minutes. So what's some tips for them who may not have the blessing of a robust response as you do, which I think by your admission allows you guys to do some things
right? Yeah.
that they shouldn't do, right? Fair?
Yeah. And keyword is some, because what people don't realize, like you say, it's a blessing. Having that manpower is a blessing. Our first in company shows up with 4 people on it, and they don't wait for the other 26 people to get there to do anything. One guy's getting the water supply, the driver's doing driver things, and then there's 2 guys going in on the line. It's just 2. So we have 4, and then 2 guys are advancing the hose line to where it needs to be. They're not waiting for any other company to get there. So there's a flip side to this whole conversation with the manpower. Yeah, we get 30 people, but those 4 aren't waiting on anyone else to start doing their job. And I show a great video from Philly. I'm sure you've seen it, where the helicopter's flying over and the guys are going in and getting it by themselves. Really good fire in like a row home. But it only takes 4. And out of those 4, it only takes 2 to advance the line where it needs to be. So unless there's a forceful entry issue, maybe advancing a 2.5 into a large building, something like that, that would delay a line getting put in place. But yeah, other than that, like you're right. In some cases, the manpower is absolutely paramount, whether it's ventilation that we need, forceful entry, stuff like that, large buildings equal large manpower. But for the most part, that's where this aggressiveness comes in and the initiative comes in. Is if you give me 4 guys that know what's going on, we can do anything. I watch 4-man companies square off against 2 or 3 floors of fire and put it out. And they've got 2 or 3 floors out by the time the second line's in place. So on busy nights, 4th of July, where you have multiple fires going simultaneously, you might be by yourself for some time. And those companies don't wait. They just go to work. So.
Mm-hmm. Back to the line of duty deaths. What are some of the causation that you're noticing? I think you mentioned command location, mm-hmm. and maybe an inexperienced officer. Is there anything else that's relatable to line of duty deaths that are valuable for the discussion here on being aggressive? Are there connections to size of department or training or lack thereof? Or
I'd say the size of the department doesn't really matter. I mean, I can take you to departments that are on the Missouri-Kansas border that run 12 calls a year, and they're put together and they're great, awesome departments. So I don't really get into the size of the department or type of paid response here. That doesn't mean anything. It's all about the attitude. That means everything. But the training, to answer your question, it's directly attributed to training. We're training in Class A environments. We're training in Class A environments for basically what isn't the fire we're fighting in a modern fire environment. We're not training in furnished burn buildings. We're not even allowed to use furniture to train in. And what basically happens is we're setting ourselves up to fail. No one's getting their fire training now in preparing for adversity in any way, shape, or form. If I'm going to train to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, I don't just swing it a tee all day, right? Because that's basically how we train in the fire service. So when I get hit in the face by a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, I don't know how to handle that, right? So, or it'd be like a boxing match. It'd be like training to go fight Mike Tyson, and to train for that, you would be basically sparring against a toddler. And then all of a sudden you get in the ring, in this real life, and Mike Tyson hits you in the face, and you don't know how to handle that, because that's kind of what the fire service is like right now for the training. We can't train in real houses barely anymore, depending on what state you're in. We can't use any live fire hardly. We can't use furnishings anymore. But then 5 minutes from now, when the bell strikes, what are we doing? We're going to real houses with real furnishings. So tell me how that makes any logical sense. And we keep seeing the same result over and over again. And it's just going to keep happening until someone decides to kind of pump the brakes on this and get us back into a realistic training environment. That should be harder than what we actually do. I mean, if the military trained like us, we probably wouldn't be speaking English right now. So
what's the solution on this?
Make the training harder than the actual job. That's how you train for anything, right? Like, name one other thing you train for in life that you train for less hard or strenuously than the actual event. Name one thing. It doesn't exist, because that's not how training works, especially something that can kill you. So we've had some bad. I understand why NFPA 1403 is in place. Some people did some bad things, but don't let the 1% or the 0.1% basically dictate the other 1.2 million firemen in this country. If the military loses a person in basic, do they end basic? No, they do an investigation, they learn from it, and keep going, because they understand the value of realistic, hard training. It pays dividends on the back end. So a safe, if you put too much safety on the front end, you're only going to get a dangerous firefighter on the back end. That's kind of what we're at right now.
What are some other takeaways from the mindset of aggressiveness class that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
That just about covers it. It's really not that much into it. Like I said, most of it's common sense. The other thing was, what motivated me to do the class was there's a lot of arguing about aggressiveness and how that, I don't know how that ever became a bad word. I mean, if you look up the word in the dictionary, it just basically says all efforts to succeed or win. I don't know who would disagree with that in the fire service, but it just there's a lot of people that don't agree with that word or think it's a bad word or think it's overused or it's used to sell things. I mean, that's weird to me. All I know is it's in a Vincent Dunn book, and I mean, that guy's about as legit as it gets. So he's a person that really formally defined it. And I mean, it ain't like my thing. You know, I didn't invent it. I'm not out there, you know, trying to sell it by any way, shape, or form. But before you argue about it, try to use it, you should definitely know what it is. You know, you should definitely know the 10 tactics that make up one before you start arguing it, or, you know, what we should and shouldn't be doing, or somehow tagging aggressiveness to recklessness. That doesn't make any sense, you know.
Well, I think it's fair to say that somebody can be aggressive and reckless.
Sure. Yep. Oh, absolutely. You can be safe and reckless also. You know, that goes both ways. So you could absolutely be the most defensive postured fireman in the world and, you know, put guys inside the collapse zone. You know, just, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So what are those 10 things that you have made a couple references to now?
Yeah. So, like I said, they've been published by Vincent Dunn in numerous books of his. One of them is actually like Safety and Survival of the Fire Ground. But most of them are just, you know, you enter the room to put the fire out. You search ahead of the hose line. You don't wait for the fire to be under control before you do searches. Do vertical ventilation, roof ops. That's something that's going away, unfortunately. But you don't ask for permission to overhaul. Like I said, that's just directly, you know, related to taking initiative, right? And on the flip side of an aggressive interior fire attack, there is a non-aggressive interior fire attack, which is basically the opposite of all those things. You always search with a line. You never search ahead of a line. You always search behind the line. You don't do roof ops. You always ask for permission to break windows or overhaul. And that's an option. I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm just saying if you do those things, understand they might lead to some outcomes you weren't expecting. And that goes for both ways too. So, I mean, there's no right or wrong in the fire service. It's just best, better, and different. So.
Okay. What things would you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about because I didn't ask the right question?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer there. I don't know. It sounds like it just answered itself. I think we pretty much covered it. I could talk about fire stuff all day.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't something that you were hoping that we would have had a conversation about, and then when we end the show, you'd be like, "Oh man, I wish we would have talked about," but he didn't ask me. So I just, you know, it's kind of like, you know, handing you the open mic and saying, you know, you can contribute now anything that you want to contribute that might be off the question list that I had asked you, if there was anything there.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, I say, like, because I can only take this from you know, social media. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And spoiler alert, that is coming to an end. I'm at my game up top, and you know, I've come and gone on social media, so I won't be on it much longer. Just throwing it out there. But nothing bad happened. I'm just I've got other things to do. But anyway, so something that I keep seeing is people don't understand that if you're not in a position to change the problem that you have, then don't worry about it. You know, I mean, you see it over and over again, just meaningless banter of firemen over. I mean, we can talk about anything, whether it's like how you're putting out the fire, you know, a fog nail, or what kind of European helmet someone's upset about. That stuff does not matter, right? Unless like you're on some sort of, unless you're the chief, like trying to think about what helmet to buy your men, who cares? I don't pick who buys the helmets in my department. If I show up to work tomorrow and they're like, here's this new helmet, and I don't, whatever, like that's non-negotiable. I wear the helmet my department issues me. I have no say in that, so I don't care. But that's like something that if we should promote more of. You know, like if you're not in a position to make the change, then shut up. Stop complaining. You know, like it only makes you look bad. So, and then what we should be complaining about is maybe how we should use a Halligan, how to swing an axe, how to clean a tool, you know, how to raise a ladder the proper. You know, let's Let's talk about the stuff that matters. You know, don't worry about how some fire department's throwing water through a window. Who cares? That's not my fire department. That's not my house. My parents don't live there. I don't care if they throw rocks at it. It shouldn't bother you. So that's the problem, is we let stuff bother us that really doesn't mean anything.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and spending about 40 minutes now with me, having this conversation. Obviously, you're very, very passionate about the fire service and very passionate about this topic of the mindfulness of aggressiveness. And I think you're right. There's a lot of confusion and mislabeling, and I think it's causing some rift out there among firefighters, where I think in reality, if everybody would just listen more and maybe want to talk a little less, they might learn something about what it all means and how to use it to their advantage. I think you've been very, very pointed in saying this isn't for everyone. This isn't for every department. This isn't for every situation, and that the firefighters have to decide what are the right conditions. You mentioned common sense several times. If only common sense were common among all.
You know what? God, that's the scariest thing is, you actually have to tell some of these people, like, no, don't go in that. That's bad. You know, don't walk into a flaming room without water. Don't, you actually have to explain that. That's something I had to get used to. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just about using this way of firefighting and taking it back to your department and scaling it down to your resources at hand. That's what this is about. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing by any means.
Yeah. All right, Chris, thanks for being with me.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you to Firefighter Chris Tobin for sharing your thoughts about the mindset of aggressiveness with our listeners and viewers. The Situational Awareness Matters show launched in 2014 with a purpose: to give a platform to those who've had near-miss events to share their stories. When I'm on the road delivering classes on situational awareness, I often ask the attendees about near-miss events they've had, and they have shared some amazing stories. Those stories motivated me to launch this podcast, so those lessons could be shared with a bigger audience, you. The Situational Awareness Matters show, podcasted as SAMatters Radio, and our companion video program on the SAMatters TV channel on YouTube, along with other videos that we have posted there, have enjoyed more than 800,000 downloads. I am so thankful for your support, and I feel so honored to be able to provide a platform for these amazing stories to be shared. If you like the show, please do me a solid favor. Please subscribe. For the audio version of the show, search for SAMatters Radio on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or iHeartRadio. For the video version, subscribe to SAMatters TV on YouTube. And if you find value in the show, I would really appreciate it if you would give the show a rating and write a review. Your ratings and reviews help others to find the show, and more importantly, your feedback inspires me to work even harder for you.
I think Rich's ability to connect with any crowd, that's a gift that he has, and it's easily transferable.
This is the second or third time that I've heard him speak. There's some teeth to the information that he brings.
It's been really good. Good mixes. He knows when to throw in a joke here and there to get you back involved.
Some tools. I'm a new lieutenant, so very, very interesting. And some of these things I can take back to the station and use with some of the new firefighters I have on my crew.
Something to get you thinking about your job more, big picture type stuff. I've seen him before. A good review for sure.
I have heard him before, yes. After he speaks, there's usually an enlightenment because now they're more aware of what's going on around them and what they're experiencing as they respond to calls.
He's very, very knowledgeable. I'm enjoying it so far.
And that intuition That's a big one. The video that you just showed up here, we're getting a lot out of this. I think this is a really good seminar, especially for new people and old. But I think it's very informative. This talk gives us more ammunition to do all three.
They're relatable to what we have experienced or very well could experience, so he makes it easy to let the knowledge sink in.
I mean, it's awesome. A lot of stories you can usually relate to yourself and calls you have been on, aha moment. Like, he just helps you focus on picking out the right things. It's awesome. It's a refresher and keeps my eyes open. It's good stuff.
If people listen to the message that he has, it's an incredible message delivered by a very compassionate person. Strategy and tactics are going to always change. Situational awareness it doesn't change. It's always there.
He's got some good stories to tell, and he's very thorough with his stories, and it's interesting listening to him.
Very clear speaker, and he talks on our level because he's been there, he's been in the trenches. I think he's doing well, and I'm looking forward to the second half.
Since 2007, Situational Awareness Matters instructors have helped more than 1,300 organizations and have trained more than 80,000 individuals to improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, public transportation operators, aviation workers, oil refinery process operators, and more. If you work in a high-risk, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we're here to help to improve your safety and your survival, and to help you accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home to the ones who love you. I'd like to take a moment to honor and thank the companies, organizations, agencies, and departments that have hosted recent situational awareness training for their team members. The Lansing Fire Department in Lansing, Michigan, the Ingham County Fire Chiefs Association in Michigan, the Coastal Bend Regional Advisory Council in Corpus Christi, Texas, and the Safety Plus Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am now officially on a 6-week sabbatical from all presentations to, as Dr. Stephen Covey would say in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'm going to sharpen my saw and focus on my personal growth and my personal development. And while I'm off the road, the podcast will continue to be released every Tuesday as scheduled. If you're interested in attending an upcoming event, here's what's on the horizon once I return from my 6 weeks of rest and relaxation. On October 15th, I will be at the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Peoria, Illinois. On October 19 and 20, I'll be at the Clearwater Regional Fire Service in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. On November 14 through 17, at the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officers Section Symposium in the Sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. And on October 23rd, at the County of Grand Prairie Fire Services in Grand Prairie, Alberta. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming events, just head over to the SAMatters.com website and click on the red tab labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. If you're interested in hosting a program, just click on the Contact Us tab on the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I will give you a call. If you want to become part of the SA Matters community of learners, there's several ways that you can do that. Check the show notes for how to get connected with us by signing up for our monthly newsletter. It's free. By subscribing to the SA Matters radio podcast. That's free also. By subscribing to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel. That's free too. And how to follow us on the social media channels of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 284 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Chris Tobin from the St. Louis Fire Department. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, SimsUShare. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, organizations, and associations that have hosted Situational Awareness Matters training programs. Thank you to all the organizations that have hosted a live stream training program where I come to your organization live via the internet to train all of your members. Thank you to the more than 3,000 students and graduates of the highly acclaimed Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. The feedback I've received from Academy graduates is just amazing and very humbling, and I thank you for that. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SAMatters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit SAMatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.